Thank you. Oh, what a great laugh track. Right, Johnny? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the wonderful, wacky world of public access. Our executive producer, John Hollis, who handles all the money, ladies and gentlemen.
The money. Pittsburgh, 2.5 points.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, the sports writers are picking the Red Sox to win it all this year. Now, yesterday they received their first bad omen. That's right, Bill Buckner sent them a good luck note. Yes. Oh, excuse me. Okay. But you know, Red Sox manager John McNamara, he's got his hands filled. He's got to tell Jim Rice that he can't play left field anymore. Would you want to tell Jim Rice he can't play anymore? You know, John, I think these jokes are great if they only included a punchline.
Yeah, tell me about it, John.
Actually, McNamara was quoted as saying this year he just hopes to have stability. And I think that's why Oil Can Boyd is with the team. George Steinbrenner and Dave Winfield are really going at it. Heated argument over Dave Winfield's new book. Well, it's a good thing they have a rational manager in Billy Martin. I don't know if anyone heard, but last week Billy tried to trade Dave Winfield for Morton Downey Jr. Okay, you know, I saw another Billy D. Williams commercial the other day, and I want to know, does Billy D. Williams really need Colt 45 to meet a girl? John, what do you think? Sly Stallone's back in the news. That's right, Sly's got a new Rambo movie coming out. And strangely enough, in this movie, he plays a macho character.
Give me the writer.
Tonight, we have 3 letters, our first 3 letters from 3 viewers out there. And the first one is from Dawn Garabini from New Britain, Connecticut. And Dawn says, Dear John and John, we think you're both funny. We love your show. But what about the laugh track? Now, Dawn, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm half a million without this laugh track. That's right. I couldn't go anywhere without it. And to give you an idea of what I mean, I'm going to tell a joke, a simple 8th grade joke, without the laugh track. What does a honeymoon salad consist of? Lettuce alone. Now, we're going to tell that same joke, Dawn, with a laugh track. Hey, what's a honeymoon salad consist of? Lettuce alone. So, Dawn, that'll give you an idea of how important our laugh track is to us here downtown. Now, our second letter is from Don Palzer in Newington, Connecticut. And Don writes, let's see, where is it? Dear Johnny, we think you're really funny. We like the concept of downtown. We like John Hollis. We like the idea that he's always sleeping when you're talking to him and not listening to you. But what about the set? How come the set is so unorganized? And he spelled unorganized wrong. Probably a college graduate, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Don, I'm going to tell you. We're going to show you a clip of our show, of our set from last week's show with Jerry Brooks. And there it is on the screen. And now I want to show you the set as it really is, if we didn't decorate it. Sad but true, Don. That's the way it really is. Now, which would you rather have? Our third letter is from Jack Burns in Hartford, Connecticut. And Jack's letter goes, Dear John, we love the set. We love the laugh track. We think it's a great idea. But as far as you and John Hollis are concerned, my wife and myself and my sister think you're both very immature and you don't take life seriously. What is your attitude problem? Signed, Jack Burns. Johnny, what do you think? Are we too immature? John Hollis, our executive producer, ladies and gentlemen. Come on up there.
John, hi.
John, let me ask you this. Do you think we're immature?
To be totally honest, I think sometimes we are a little bit.
Oh, we are not. No, come on.
No, we are.
We are not.
I too.
We're not.
I too.
We're not.
I too.
We're not.
I too.
Oh, we'll be right back. We're not.
We are too.
We're not.
We're not. Spit on your mother.
Spit on my mother?
know, people ask me all the time, Jerry, what's your idea of a fun show? Well, sorry, Dave Letterman. Too bad, Johnny Carson. You see, I always go downtown with John Mason. Check it out on your local public access channel.
Change my way of thinking, make myself a difference than a rule. Gonna change my way of thinking, make myself a difference than a rule.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. You know, and our first guest tonight is from England. He's British. He's also working for the BBC Radio, and he's just a real nice guy. Let's have a big hand for Dan Patterson. Dan, come on out. Welcome to the show, Dan. They love you.
Oh, it's great. It's wonderful to see real American people after all this time on my own.
You know, do you find, Dan, that girls in America like the English accent? Do you find they...
Well, I think on most other people, yes, but the fact that it's with me, they're already running away anyway, so...
What's the problem?
What, my problem? Well, no, let's get back to that question.
Right,
That is a good question. I find that I lived here for 4 years, and I found that I could get away with almost anything because of my accent. People assume that because you speak like this, you're intelligent, which it clearly is a misapprehension. And women, you find a lot of the time, and it's very cute at the beginning, people say, oh, that's wonderful, say that again. And, you know, that's very nice.
What would they ask you to say again? Well, like what?
Well, the thing that I just said, generally. But it would depend. It just depends on the situation. But I always find it very unfair. You've got to listen to this because it's very unfair. When I come over to America, Americans say, "I love you." Excuse me. It's all right. Short span of attention. I know your generation. They say, "I love you. I love your country. I love the way you speak." When Americans come over to England, people say, "Oh, not another American." And that's so unfair because, you know, it's this national sort of stereotype thing, but it works very well in our favor.
I went to England about 2 years ago, and I found it very hard to understand the English when I first got into, what's the airport? There's 2 airports there, right?
Heathrow and Gatwick.
Right,
Heathrow and
I think that was the first one.
So you see, American television is educational.
That's right, that's right. And
a few little points there.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks.
All right, what's going on in England? What are you here for?
Well, it's really, it's mainly social. I'm here to see friends that I made while I was at university in the States, Northwestern. But I'm working on a new show.
BBC radio or television?
This is a radio show which is going to television. And
it's definitely going?
Having said this, it probably won't, so I'll look even more of a fool than I already am. But the idea is that it's going to do that, yes. And we're going to... I've been going around seeing if there was any interest, mainly on the West Coast among agents.
It's a comedy show?
It's a comedy show, improv comedy, which really in America is the birthplace.
Now, you were part of a comedy troupe here in America.
Well, I directed a comedy troupe in Chicago.
Second City. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Dan Patterson.
Thank you very much.
They love you, Dan.
They do. Well, I'm afraid it's going to be a bit of a letdown now because it wasn't actually Second City. It was Northwestern University.
Thanks for being on the show, Dan.
Thanks, it's a pleasure. More a pleasure. We see that's American comedy. See, we love that. What you're doing now. American comedy's great.
So, what was the troupe? What did you?
It was an improv show that we took it to the Edinburgh Festival. There's a very big festival that goes on in Edinburgh every summer.
And now, where's that?
Edinburgh's in Scotland.
Okay.
Scotland, okay.
Right.
Just at the top of England. If you drive up north, you can't miss it. Okay. And it was
You took American people from Chicago to this festival in Scotland.
That's right.
Now, could anybody go, or were you chosen to go, or?
Well, in the sense that we're the chosen people, possibly, but in the immediate sense, I chose the cast, and we had to raise all our own money. We raised about $20,000 to go over and everything. But anybody can go to the Edinburgh Festival.
Now, was this like a battle of the bands type thing, a battle of the?
Well, it was very sort of quick banter and interplay all the way across. We got audience suggestions from people, and the Americans are very quick. I mean, I'm always amazed that if you got a group of 10 English people together, they could probably do Shakespeare very well. But the Americans, what was wonderful was, I mean, particularly with the women in the group, and this is what I was particularly impressed with, they were so quick and so aggressive in their humour, and you know.
Now, are English women like that, or?
Well, in doing this improv show at the moment, I'm finding it very difficult to find English women. I'm finding it very difficult to find English women anyway, but it's even more so to be on the show. And I think that part of the reason is that Americans just use their bodies more as sort of more used to letting their hair down, really going crazy. All this hip lingo, yeah.
So you're going to tell us about the BBC when you come back?
What, when I come back in a few months' time? Oh, I see. Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to go to a commercial break.
Commercials, right.
We stay with us with Dan Patterson.
Right, yes.
Someone is smoking over there.
Something we cats would never do.
Filling their lungs with thick, dark hair.
What a disgusting thing to do.
Cats have 9 lives with 8 to spare. Humans have 1.
With none to barter.
Why do they smoke?
Why don't they care?
Humans are smart, but cats are smarter. Listen to cats, you men and women. Take care of your lungs. They're only human.
The American Lung Association, the Christmas Seal people.
Well, I have known you since you were a small boy.
Very hard time, very hard time.
Okay, we are back with Dan Patterson, and Dan is from the BBC Radio. And Dan, let me ask you this: do you think the humor between America and Britain is any different than the humor between America and Britain?
Very well put, very well stated.
Thank you.
I noticed you phrase everything twice. I hate people that say everything twice. I really do. People that say everything twice really annoy me. But the thing is, I mean, for example, the audience is laughing uproariously at you, and I don't understand it at all. I mean, it seems to me.
Well, you've got to understand that I have somewhat of a following in this area, okay?
Yes.
And you're probably new to the area. So, okay, getting back to the seriously, though.
Seriously, folks, I think there is a difference. I think British comedy is more political, and I think American comedy is a little bit more based, particularly in the stand-up things, with recognition, with familiarity. For example, an American comedian will come on and will set up a premise. They'll say, remember when you're at university and you used to do this? And then they'll give you 5 funny examples and do that with their hands. And they'll be funny when they do it. And in Britain, it's less of that kind of stuff. I think it's a little bit more satirical, a little bit more verbal, a lot of wordplay. I remember.
Do you think that it's as much cursing in Britain? Do they use obscene language like you would find in a stand-up act, like, say, Eddie Murphy? Or
I don't think so, but I think that's raises a whole different area, because I think the cursing is not necessarily, in a way, being used as a curse thing in the States always. It's being used to punctuate and give aggression to the thing. But no, I find that, although funnily enough, I mean, everybody always thinks of Britain as upstairs, downstairs, very prude. But I think as a society in general, particularly on television, you get away with a lot more on British television.
You do?
Yeah, I mean, I always notice when you watch American prime time how even in the sort of the modern shows, the very hip shows, it's terribly squeaky clean.
So it's more innuendos in America as compared to, you're more graphic over there, you think? Or?
I think it's more graphic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
Like, what's a graphic show over there?
Well, it's not so. I mean, it would even in something like.
Well, okay. Let me say this. I saw Benny Hill maybe 10 years ago, and I thought that was very graphic for its time. That was what, 75 or 77.
Well, yeah, that's right.
So, would that be considered a graphic show at one time, or?
Yeah, but you've got to remember that Benny Hill is already fairly passé. I mean, that was on in the late 60s, early 70s in Britain. But yes, he is. The interesting thing about Benny Hill is a lot of people who write to me when I'm doing my shows. I say a lot of people. 2 people who write in. You know, in fact. It's my mother and somebody's friend.
You got my letter?
That's right, yours as well. Yeah, that was very nice. I couldn't read it though. You should different handwriting. But anyway, or else you've got a very bad typewriter. People write in and they'll say, "Oh God, this is terrible. You know, it's full of all this swearing and cursing and all this. Why can't you do more stuff like Benny Hill or the 2 Ronnies?" Right. And you want to kill yourself, because those things are all innuendo.
Right.
All they are is innuendo, sexual innuendo all the way through.
What about Monty Python? Is that?
I don't think that is. In fact, I think what Monty Python were doing was spoofing that exactly. And the show that came after them, not the 9 o'clock news, did a spoof on the 2 Ronnies, in which they did a sketch.
Now, what's the 2 Ronnies?
The 2 Ronnies is it is on American television, because I've seen it on American television. It's 2 comedians, very middle of the road, quite clever verbal stuff, but sort of more middle generation stuff. It's not young comedy, and it's.
Now, how would you compare the Beatles to something like that?
Well, much earlier, and in music, and nothing to do with it at all. But getting back to the question, with something like the 2 Ronnies, it's very. They did this sketch, not the 9 o'clock news, did this sketch where instead of just, they'd say, for example, the woman was there, she was lying on the grass. The snake came up and bit her on the elbow, and the 2 Ronnies would do that, and the audience would guffaw. But the 2 Ronnies actually just inserted all the, I mean, not the 9 o'clock news, actually inserted all the words and blew that whole idea apart. And of course, they got all the letters. But you know, it's changing taste.
Now, who do you think is funny over in England?
Over in England?
Yeah.
well, Monty Python, I grew up on. The Goons before them, they were precursors of Monty Python.
Okay.
And,
now, what were the Goons?
The Goons, it was a radio comedy thing, extremely zany, extremely mad. Went all over the place. And Monty Python, they were the gurus to them. In the same way, I suppose, as some of the Second City people in Chicago were the gurus of the later Saturday Night Live crowd. I probably got that completely wrong. Even sent letters to him. And because he needs them. He doesn't get any. I went through his stuff earlier on. He gets no fan mail.
We got 4 letters last week.
Oh, you did? Yes, that's right. And what do they spell?
They say, I don't get it.
Okay. Well, you see, that's the difference between our kinds of humor, which I think is fascinating.
Ladies and gentlemen, you see England and America right here now trying to understand each other.
That's right. This is how wars get started. But you see,
thanks for being on the show, Dan.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
I love these flowers. I'd water them if I were you. And the cat. Anyway, so what were we talking about? I think we
were talking about the Beatles.
The Beatles. Yeah. I love the Beatles. We all grew up in the Beatles. They were big in England.
Did they influence
Somebody
you?
should bring them over here because they really are good.
Let's unite the Beatles.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I don't understand that because we don't have what you call sick humour.
You don't? No.
We just wouldn't understand that at all.
What about Oxford University?
They're funny.
Now,
they're great and lovely music.
Have you ever seen them debate?
I have seen them.
I bring that up because I was involved in a debate a couple of years ago with Oxford University, and it seemed like their humor was entirely different from our humor. The things that they found funny or sarcastic didn't go over that well with the American audience. Now,
I think that would be true. Even within England, I'm not sure it would go over very well. It's I suppose in the same way as if you got Harvard together, it would be very intellectual, highbrow, and presumably a lot of in-jokes, a lot of in words that they were using between themselves. But in England, a lot of the humour, Monty Python, does really come from that because they were all at Cambridge and Oxford. And in Cambridge, there's a group called the Cambridge Footlights Review, which is a bit like Second City. It's not improv stuff, but it's the students doing reviews. And a lot of people came through that. Peter Cook and Dudley Moore.
Now, do you think the Queen is mocked as much as
she says she is? Absolutely. Although I think she exaggerates a bit when she calls me.
I see.
Yeah. But no, she's mocked an awful lot. Spitting Image, you see. Spitting Images in British television are terribly scathing.
Well, what is it? What is it, first
of
all?
It's puppets. It's puppets, and they spoof the royals, they spoof sports people, politicians. I've seen the American version, which is very good, but it's a little bit watered down. In England, it's really very much aggressive or disgusting kind of stuff.
Now, is George Best still on the news over in England?
Not really, no. He's the references here, I think, a little bit about 15 years behind, but he was great.
I'm behind times here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
I'm behind times.
Well, is this you or Connecticut or
I represent all the cable networks, from Winstead to Westport to Hartford.
There you go. That's really something.
I think I'm behind times here. John, can you help me out?
1 minute.
Okay, stay with us. We'll be right back with Dan Patterson. Now,
Honey, is everything all right?
It's just indigestion.
You don't look very good.
Don't worry.
Maybe we should go.
No, it's okay.
We could get it checked out at the hospital. It could be a heart attack.
Too young for that. Besides, I'd be embarrassed going there just for indigestion.
Each year, more than 350,000 Americans die of heart attacks before they reach the hospital. We don't want you to die of embarrassment. Get to know the symptoms of heart attack. The American Heart Association. We're fighting for your life.
When the war was over, I went dancing in the street with the corpse of my dead brother to the sacrificial beat.
Okay, we are back with Dan Patterson, ladies and gentlemen, and we were talking about the BBC, American humor, British humor. What do you think of American humor?
I love American humor. I've grown up in a sense on that as well, if you can say I've grown up. But I was fascinated because I've always wanted to know what people do, what they talk about when they go away to these commercial breaks, and now I can see it. And I think that I find it fascinating what you were talking about there, but I won't reveal that. But
no, that's why I think Bush is going to win, but go ahead.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Although he's not as fast as some say, but it's about his kids' school races. But I love American comedy and Saturday Night Live. Bill Murray is somebody that can just sit there and you'll find him funny.
Right.
I think John Candy in the same way. The Second City TV crowd I'm obsessed with at the moment. I find them very funny. And also the old American sitcoms. I mean, things like Bilko, MASH, All in the Family, all that kind of stuff. I don't like the newer stuff.
Now, a lot of those sitcoms came over from your side.
Well, MASH
The
didn't,
motherland.
but yeah, All in the Family came from Till Death Us Do Part. If I can make one point here, it is in England, Till Death Us Do Part. That's the name of the show, not Till Death
Now,
Do
what
Us Part.
about George and Mildred? That's a show.
Well, George and Mildred was a spin-off from Man About the House, which became Three's Company. Sorry, you waving
no,
at me.
I'm losing my hair here.
No, it's all right. It's fascinating.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think actually they come with me everywhere. They follow me. They're from the planet
Get back!
Ghost. That's right. Man About the House was very good. It's interesting the way well, it's not that interesting. It's
It
interesting
really
as you're going to get from me.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. Yes. It was more of a pleasure. It is interesting the way they become the American ones. It generally becomes a little bit more bland. I don't mean that in a nasty way. Well, how nice can bland be? Can I call you bland? But it is. But they do become that way a lot more. For example, in All in the Family, that caused a big stir and everything. But if you ever see the British one, the guy is. The Archie Bunker character is absolutely disgusting. I mean, there is no redeeming feature about this guy whatsoever. And in Archie Bunker, you always got he learned a bit of a lesson. And he gradually became a bit more acceptable. And this never happens in the British one. He just stays contemptible the whole time. And the same in Fawlty Towers. He is a nasty main character.
What's Fawlty Towers?
Fawlty Towers is John Cleese from Monty Python. It's possibly the most successful British series of all time. But don't be worried that you don't know anything about it.
Now, from that, we got Towering Inferno. Is that...
You did get Towering Inferno.
Okay.
That came directly from it. Not a lot of people know that, but
George Kennedy was in that.
He was in that
show last month.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so getting back to your question, Fawlty Towers.
The Beatles.
The Beatles. They're wonderful.
What effect did the Beatles have on comedy?
Almost none, but it's better than your last little comment.
Yeah.
It is a little bit more relevant, so I'll follow that up. The Fawlty Towers thing. It became Amanda's in this country, which wasn't seen very much. There's Amanda's. I mean, you've all seen Amanda's, yeah?
Amanda's,
right?
ladies and gentlemen?
Amanda's, there you go. No, it wasn't seen very much, but it was...
who was in Amanda's?
I don't actually know. Does anyone know out there who's in Amanda's?
B. Arthur. Okay.
B. Arthur.
No, that was Mark.
B. Arthur. What does B stand for? Bernie?
B-A. B.
Oh, B, yeah. And to be in Arthur. And it was...
Dan, thanks for being on the show.
It was... I'm sorry, I'm just drawing up bleeding. No, in Fawlty Towers, when they changed it, I met John Cleese, who's this completely aggressive main character. The Americans did, and they said, well, we love the show, but we're going to get rid of the John Cleese character. You know, and it makes you want to pull your hair out.
Oh.
Well, most people.
Yeah. Well, let me. What did you
learn
from American humor here? I mean, you're.
I think the upfrontness of it, the aggression, the taking things from life, and also I'll tell you the other thing. When I'm writing comedy with people, getting everything in here. When I write my films.
So writer,
producer,
playwright, producer,
and man
actor.
about town.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a big hand for it. Thanks for being on the show.
No, okay, can I finish this point?
Yeah, go ahead.
You're not going to mention the Beatles?
No, go ahead.
In any sense, or Towering.
Go ahead. You've got all the time.
Oh, okay. When they, I can't remember what I was going to say now.
You were talking about the Beatles.
No, it was after, and the Towering Inferno. Americans. We were talking about American comedy, American things, improv.
John, get the cue cards.
What was it? What is it? Somebody out there was shouting out something. I've really forgotten it, but it was going to be a great point.
Yeah, I said, what about American humor? What have you learned from American humor? Starts with a B. Come on, son, come on!
What was it? Can anyone remember? They must have all been paying such attention.
Yeah.
But, I know what it was going to be. When I write comedy, there you are. You see, nobody's listening at all. When I write comedy, I write it with an American accent. And the reason is because American is a wonderful language to be funny in.
What's your favorite American show?
Oh, my favorite American show? Well, I'd have to say Second City TV at the moment. I love MASH. There's so many. I mean, I really do. The only things I don't like, can I just make this last point?
Make it quick.
Okay, I'll make it very quick. Yeah. Something like Cosby. I would like it, but they're always nice to each other. Even when they're nasty to each other, they're nice. They go, I hate you. Just kidding. And in England, they genuinely, I mean, if they said that, they go, I hate you, and that's it, and walk off.
They
and
don't make up at the end.
It's too bland. It's everybody's being nice to each other. But in general, I think the Americans are the greatest comedians in the world, and I really mean that.
Dan, thanks for being on the show.
Pleasure.
I mean this. Thanks.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Can you fix me? Whoa, can you sorry? Can you?
For over 16 years, the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation has been funding some of the most important projects in diabetes research. Right now, we are funding research work on the transplanting of insulin-producing cells, funding experimental work with medications that may prevent diabetes. For over 16 years, we've been funding research with one goal in mind: a cure. The Juvenile Diabetes Foundation, with your help, we will be known as the people who cured diabetes.
Well, I have known you since you were a small boy.
Oh. So what'd you think of the show?
I didn't touch her. Oh, sorry.
What'd you think of the show?
Oh, I thought it was what this. Oh,
The
this
Brit.
show.
The Brit.
The British guy was very funny.
Yeah, he was all
very
right.
good. That guy was a funny man.
It was all right. I mean,
It was a refreshing change.
I had to
We
carry.
finally had somebody with a sense of humor who was real good.
No, what do you mean?
Well, I'm just saying. He
No,
was,
what are you
he was
saying?
Good. Well, I mean, you're okay.
I had to carry the show. I mean, he kind of was.
He had to carry the show.
What are you saying?
You're just a pretty boy. Let's face it.
No, what do you mean by that crack?
Come on.
What are you saying?
I remember you in the days you were depressed.
Get out of here! Not in front of the people. Our people.
In front of the people, I can do a flashback. I'm gonna do a flashback right now.
You wouldn't.
Just watch. You see it? It got all white.
Just let him do it.
He's flashing back as we're talking. It's getting.
Yeah, well,
old.
let him do it. You know what Jerry said? He said, "Shut up after we do it. After you say flashback, cool it."
I came as soon as I heard. How is he?
Oh, John! Where would he be without good friends like you?
Oh, that's what friends are for. Oh.
You were at the Bitter Creek Cafe last night, and he was doing his stand-up monologue. He bombed really badly, and the audience booed him off the stage.
Well, have you heard his act? Yes.
Oh, John, you don't understand. He ran. That's the first time he's ever done that. I'm scared, John. I'm scared.
Where is he?
The same place he's been for the last 2 nights, sitting in front of the TV, watching reruns of Branded and drinking turpentine.
Ooh, turpentine.
Look for yourself.
They say he ran away. Branded, march with a coward shame. What do you do when you're branded? Well, you fight for your name.
He's really not himself at all.
You're right.
Turn that off, buddy. Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing to yourself?
Can't you say I want to be alone?
Come on, Johnny. You gonna let a couple of hecklers get you down?
It wasn't a couple of hecklers, it was the whole audience.
All the great comedians have tough nights, John. What about all your good nights? Kelly, come here, come on, help me out. What about all the good nights you had? Like, remember? No, that wasn't real good. What about the time, remember when he was in East Hartford with the school play? That wasn't. But someday you'll have a good night.
This was more than a bad night. This was a disaster. These people didn't want to laugh. They wanted blood. This was one tough audience.
How tough were they, Kelly?
So tough they made 2 pit bulls sit in the back row.
You see what I mean? Even my wife is funnier than me.
Oh, honey, you wrote the line.
I don't want your sympathy. Can't you say I'm finished? El finished? Kaput? El endo? I'm definitely thinking of a career change.
Career change. You can't do anything.
But honey, what about our dreams? We've worked so hard to get to this point. You know you're as good as Will Shriner.
Hey, did you hear about that? They canceled Will Shriner. Really? Oh, I'm sorry, John.
To think, I was just getting good at dodging beer bottles.
Honey, keep the faith. That's the funniest part of your show.
I'm sick of working in 2-bit joints selling my guts for a cheap laugh. You don't think I know what the neighbors are saying? Huh?
Neighbors, my family.
Yeah, my family hates you too.
Yeah. I think I'm going to take the advice of my cousin Ralph. I'm going to buy that piece of farmland in Honduras.
Kelly, you want to give me another one of these?
Sure.
Johnny, what would your idol do?
Geraldo?
No. Gary Collins. You think he'd run?
Gary Collins. He wouldn't run. Maybe it was my timing. Maybe my timing was off just a little.
A little?
I'm not going to let a few people get me down. I've been a beggar, a poet, a pawn, and a prince.
That's life.
Now that's the spirit, Johnny. That boy, you're snapping out of it now. You know, I've got this new show called Downtown. It's a great talk show. And John, I need somebody on that show.
Me? A TV host?
Not the host. No, Kelly's going to host it. I want you to run camera.
All but London died. They're at Bitter Creek. And they say he ran away.